Arsenal appear to be weighing up a swoop for Eberechi Eze. Now, it's been widely documented that Spurs are also interested in the player. And over the past 3 to 4 days, there's been a lot of reports that Arsenal have now opened conversations with Eze's camp to gauge the potential conditions of a deal and to understand the inner workings of his £68 million release clause, which, through what I understand, is a time-sensitive release clause. So it does have an expiry date on it this summer. It was active last summer as well, and it's expected to become active again now that we've entered the July period of the summer transfer window. Obviously, the PSR deadline is today. So we've seen Aston Villa do a little bit of manoeuvring. There's been a lot of early deals as well, particularly in that first period of the transfer window where clubs are able to do business before the Club World Cup. But now we're going to really kick into the crux of the window where a lot of the big movement is going to happen. And Eze does look like a player that could potentially move. So as I said, Spurs are also interested in Eze, and they're long-term admirers of the player. But I think there has been a little bit of a surprise to see Arsenal looking at Eze. Obviously, he's a highly talented player that, you know, could probably get into the squads of all 20 Premier League clubs without a doubt, potentially the starting lineups. Lacked a little bit of consistency, but he does have that magic and star quality, as we saw in the FA Cup final when he struck the winner against City in May, to unlock the door and to provide a decisive moment in a match. And I think those kind of players are rare, particularly in the modern game where there's so much emphasis on detail in terms of positioning and tactics. Eze is still a little bit of a maverick, although, you know, tactically he's also been very disciplined in an Oliver Glasner's 3-4-2-1 system. So it does look like Arsenal are interested in Eze. Whether Mikel Arteta views Eze as someone that can play in midfield in one of the number 8 roles, or whether he does see him as a left winger, remains to be seen at this stage. We know he can play out wide. But for me, Eze is a player that does more damage in the central areas of the field. We know Arsenal are strongly courting Rodrigo, but if they want to sign the Brazilian, I think they're going to have to be really patient, and that's a saga that could run long into the summer, because at the moment, at the Club World Cup, Rodrigo is kind of struggling to break into Xabi Alonso's team. But Alonso has made it clear that he does really like Rodrigo, and that at the moment he's just trying to experiment with a few things upon arrival from Bayer Leverkusen. But there does appear to be a slight change of system with Vinicius playing more centrally. And when Mbappe is fully fit as well, there's a chance that them two could form a strike partnership, which is something a little bit different from what we've seen at the Bernabeu over the past of the course few years. Would take a huge fee as well and significant wages to maybe entice Rodrigo to the Emirates. But I do think that's a situation that is ongoing at this stage. But the fact that Arsenal have made those initial checks on Eze does appear to suggest they're lining up potential alternatives. I think Eze would be open to the move, because I think at this stage of his career, he's now won a trophy at Crystal Palace. I don't think it's probably going to get much better than that. So to potentially leave on a high and, you know, effectively raising Palace a lot of cash, I think he would be a player that's held incredibly high regard, if he was to depart Crystal Palace, because of what he's achieved there. There's no kind of running down the contract, etc. So I do think that's a move that Eze would be open to, but we can't rule out Spurs still moving for Eze, although it does appear that Mohamed Kudus is emerging as a really strong transfer target. There has been indications that a bid has already gone in for Kudus earlier in the window. We know they looked at Antoine Semenyo as well at Bournemouth, who, again, another player that has admirers at Arsenal and the likes of Manchester United, but will be difficult to prize away from Bournemouth for the kind of money that they would likely be quoting, because they've been already stripped of some of their most prized assets in the form of Dean Howson, Milos Kerkez, obviously Kepa Arrizabalaga as well was a loanee, has now gone to Arsenal. So I think Kudus is definitely attainable because West Ham need to sell to buy. He's another player that Arsenal have looked at as well. So I think a lot of the top clubs are looking for these high-level attacking players that can play in multiple positions across the front line. But I think Eze is certainly a situation to watch. I think Kudus is a name that we're going to hear a lot more about. We know that Chelsea approached West Ham about a potential swap deal earlier in the window, so I'm expecting movement on that front. So going just a bit more Arsenal, obviously Cristhian Mosquera, there was an opening bid, landed at the back end of last week, 14 million euros, about 12 million pounds, immediately rebuffed by Valencia, but discussions are ongoing. Although I did report that first bid, I wasn't able to actually verify the details of that bid and how much it was going to cost, but I'm expecting a second bid in the coming days because Arsenal want to tie up this deal. I also expect Arsenal to announce the signing of Martin Zubimendi in the coming days as well, potentially tomorrow, which is Tuesday, because we enter July. The Kepa deal was also done. Christian Norgard's set for his medical. I don't believe that's taken place just yet. As I mentioned, Norgard has been in Denmark where his wife is due to give birth. So once Arsenal have got those deals over the line, we're going to see finally some movement on the striker. I do still believe Benjamin Sesko is the top pick, but Arsenal will be looking to strengthen their wide options as well. And I do still think there is going to be a notable sale before the end of the window. Who that might be, I don't quite know. Obviously, we know Leandro Trossard has been in contract discussions with the club. Gabriel Martinelli has also attracted interest from the Saudi Pro League with Al Nassr, looking for a left winger. They've looked at Luis Diaz as well. Barcelona and Bayern Munich have also made inquiries for Martinelli over the past 6 weeks. So I do think that is a situation that is worth keeping an eye on. I don't think it's sustainable really to have 3 left wingers, but obviously Trossard can play through the middle. Eze, if he was to be the player that arrives, can play as a number 10 as well. There has been interest in Kudus. As I said, Kudus's release clause becomes active tomorrow. It's an £85 million figure fee for Premier League clubs, which I really do not expect any Premier League club to meet that figure. But knowing that West Ham are open to a sale, I think there's definitely a chance that we could see some further activity on that front, because it's clear that Kudus is highly likely to leave West Ham this summer. And I just want to touch on the João Pedro deal as well. Brighton, as I reported in the Sunday Mirror, were looking for a £60 million package. They had rejected a few bids prior to agreeing the deal with Chelsea. Chelsea sources say it's worth in excess of £50 million, but Brighton sources say it's worth up to £60 million. They're also going to get a sell-on clause, and it's a £55 million initial payment with £5 million in add-ons. And that's also good news for Watford. See, they sold Pedro to Brighton for £30 million, but they also included a sell-on clause which entitled him to 20% of anything over £35 million. So if those add-ons are activated and Chelsea do end up paying a £60 million figure for Pedro, that would see Watford bank in excess of £5 million, which for a Championship club, I do think that's a good bit of business from them. Obviously, it's good business from Brighton as well, because they've doubled their money effectively in 2 seasons. Pedro was also close to joining Newcastle a couple of years ago, ended up going to Brighton instead. And now Brighton have doubled their money, and of course Newcastle have missed out on one of their top targets, having also struggled to convince Bryan Mbeumo to move to St James's Park. So I do expect Newcastle to be in the mix for some of these attacking players as well, such as Kudus. So it's a market at the moment that looks to be heavily dominated by attacking players moving. Of course, United are still in talks with Bryan Mbeumo. We do expect that deal to go through, but there are other players that are on the radars of a number of these clubs, including Semenyo, who, again, as I said, it would be difficult to envisage him leaving Bournemouth this summer, but at the same time, you can see why he'd be such an attractive market opportunity for some of these clubs that are looking to strengthen multiple positions across their front line. I'm looking to get the subscribers up as well. So if you haven't subscribed yet, hit the subscribe